In this video, we'll illustrate how to protect parts of the table so that students don't accidentally change something. So, for example, here's a table here of nutrition analysis. And so this is actually real data from one of my classes, and these are various different students. And they put in these values after doing a nutritional analysis for the day. Well, let's say that I don't want them to change the category headers, nor do I want them to change the actual calculated values. So I'm going to click on row 1, shift click row 2. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go to data. And under data, I will say I'd like to protect the ranges and sheets. And so here now, we're defining a zone, which is basically data. So that happens to be this particular sheet within the worksheet. And then from 1 to 2, in other words, rows 1 and 2. And I'm going to just say here headers. So now I know exactly what that protected range is. I'm going to set permissions. And here I would say I'm going to turn off everyone except for myself. So now the only person who can edit this is myself. And so we'll click on done, and we're back, and now we've actually changed it. So now you'll see here that this is a protected zone. So you won't see this unless you're in the data protection zone of the spreadsheet manipulation. You can protect cells so that only a particular student can edit. So for example, if I want student 4 to be able to edit just their column, then what I can do is I will say data, and I'll say let's go ahead and give a protected range there. And for this one, I'll just call it student 4, whoever that might be. And so I'll set the permissions for this as well. And I'll just turn off everybody. So I'll just turn off everybody except for myself. And let's say I wanted to go down somebody, and let's say I wanted to add this individual. So, or let me just go up and put somebody else like Brian Foley. Okay, so now Brian Foley is going to be an editor right there. And so I can say done. And now only the two of us can edit. All right, I can share it with them. I'm not going to at this particular point here so you can see it. But basically, student 4 that would be Brian Foley, and only he can edit that as well as myself. So this way you can have a collaborative table, but only the people who have the appropriate privileges can make those changes. So over here, I'm going to change this. I'll say Brian Foley. And so if he wanted to go and edit that and so forth, he could do so, and he could edit anything in that row. But nobody else could make the changes there. So I could just go down through there, and let's say I wanted to say Mike Rivas. And again, once again, I'm going to click on that, and I'll say that I'd like to do a data protected ranges here, and I'll say that's going to be Mike Rivas. And once again, when I set the permissions, I'll just turn off everybody else's, but then I would add in here Mike Rivas. All right, so once that's done and you've selected it, then you'll see that only Mike Rivas and I have access to that, and we're the only ones who can make that change. So that's how you can set this up so that that different people can change certain things. And one thing you have to be careful on this is that make sure that your protected ranges are descriptive. So this says student 4. I could change that to Brian Foley, just so it's more descriptive. But the idea is that you want to know what the reason is for the protection, just to keep it straight. Now I can also protect an entire sheet. So for example, let's say I click on nutritional analysis and I right click on this, I can go over here and I can protect the sheet, and I can just say locked. Okay. So, or all with the exception of specific cells. So I could lock the whole thing, or I could say I'd like to say that specific cells within that can be changed. In this case, I'm going to lock the entire sheet, and that will then lock this sheet down. Again, if you click on this, say protected sheets, and then just set your permissions here, then you'll notice that when you save it, a padlock will appear. So that padlock that's appearing right there indicates that that is now locked, and so nobody can make the changes. So in this case, this is just a graph that's in response to this data here. So let's just go ahead and take a look at our data here. Let's say that we change this data, let's say to 10,000. Obviously, these values were not complete. Actually, 100,000 there. And you'll notice how it adjusted the graph over here. So this was just the beginning of a particular exercise, not what people actually ate that day. So and now nobody could actually fiddle around with the graph because the graph is protected. So you can protect rows, you can protect columns, you can protect cells, you can protect blocks of data, and you can protect entire sheets from being changed. So this is a way that you can regulate who has access to particular parts of a spreadsheet or database.